Welcome to Nitpicking Nerds. Today, we got 10 tips for you.
10 ways to increase your win percentage in Commander.
I'm your host, Joe Cherries.
I'm your host, Beezy, and that makes us the Nitpicking Nerds. You can check out our Discord, where you can play games of Commander without any sort of entry fee or anything like that. And you can support us on Patreon for actual dollars because we are making #daily content.
Daily content, baby. So hopping right into this, these are 10 tips that are just going to increase your win percentage in Commander. Let's jump right into number one, Beezy, which is Mulligan. Mulligan way more aggressively. If your hand doesn't work and it doesn't function, you should probably just get rid of it. Don't keep those two landers. Don't be risky because, first of all, your first Mulligan, absolutely free.
You don't need to keep 1 and 2 and 5 and 6 landers where your deck isn't going to function for the first couple turns because then you're never going to execute your game plan.
One thing I'm looking for in opening hands, early plays for sure. You want to get on the board early and do things quickly. If I don't have a ramp spell by turn, we'll say 3, I probably don't want to keep that hand, especially if my deck plays the right amount. Like if I'm playing those, if I'm playing like 10 ramp spells, I want to really be sure I have one in my opening hand, or else I might just fall behind very quickly.
Yeah, I usually look for like a sweet spot of, a ramp spell and a card draw spell. I get to see more cards past the first 10 and get more mana past the first 4 or 5.
Yeah, exactly. I want to make sure that whatever I'm doing, if I'm not going to ramp, I want to make sure I have ways to hit my land drops, whether it be card draw, ways to put lands in my hand, like maybe a Weather Wayfarer, things like that. I don't want to miss land drops, especially if I'm not ramping.
Yeah, last thought, just don't get lazy with it. Don't look at a 2-lander and go, I'm too lazy to mulligan. We're trying to increase your win percentage. Making little shortcuts like that where it saves you 20 seconds of work so that you can be miserable for 30 minutes of gameplay and then lose without ever playing the game, that EV is terrible. It doesn't make sense. It doesn't work for you in the long run. Don't ever keep a hand out of laziness or frustration or anything.
Exactly, yeah. Use the free mulligan aggressively. That's the one you need to use aggressively. I get going down on cards, it starts to be a little bit more, I'd keep a little riskier if I'm losing a card. But when you have the free mulligan, don't keep anything risky.
No.
If it has a risk to it and it's not a real high reward, get rid of it.
I've mulliganed perfectly playable hands because they were just too slow. I know what my deck needs to do. I want to be turn 2 faster. I get the same amount of cards, so let's take that chance.
Yes, exactly. So
number 2.
Yes, on to rule number 2. Well, not rule, but tip number 2. Prioritize instant speed interaction over sorcery speed interaction. This isn't something to do in the deck building process.
Yeah, once you do that, once you say, I'm going to play instants way higher than I'm going to play sorceries, you get into the game and you realize explain it, but you basically draw cards. So the easiest example is, let's say Joe has like a Ghalta. It's like a 12/12 trample. It's vanilla, but it's beefy, and if it hits you, it's going to take out like a third of your life total. So if I have a Vindicate in my hand, well, I have to now answer this Ghalta on my turn before it could attack me because I can't stop it from attacking me. But if I were to have an Anguished Unmaking in my hand instead, I now go, pass the turn. I can wait until all the available information is here. If Ghalta attacks me, I'm going to murder it. I'm going to get rid of it. But if it doesn't attack me, what happens?
If it doesn't attack you, you don't have to do anything. You literally don't have to do anything. You can just go, that 12 is attacking my opponent. Well, they're going to take 12, or they're going to remove it for me. Either way, I'm happy.
You're either up a card or you just dealt 12 damage to your opponent for a deck building choice. It wasn't even a mana cost or a time sink. It was building your deck, just dealt 12 damage to that opponent in this game.
Yes, instant speed interaction takes such high priority over sorcery speed that it's crazy. The same spell, like a Swords of Plowshare and Swords of Plowshare that's a sorcery, the difference between those spells is completely insane.
Yeah, they're miles apart. We tend to move towards sorceries when we're getting into like synergy. This can be a repeated removal spell, or it's extra cheap, or I can do it multiple times. But the staples and stuff, the instants, those are just invaluable, too valuable, priceless.
Yeah, unless there is a synergy, just go with the instant first. But if you have something that cares just about sorceries, let's say, then there's obviously an advantage to playing a sorcery.
So number 3, this one is going to sound dumb, but it happens almost every game. It is don't miss free attacks. You are giving up percentage points every time you say, I have a 2/2. On turn 2, no one has any creatures. I'll just pass. There's basically nothing to be gained from this. There's a couple ways to look at it. Number 1, how many games end, or almost end, with 3 players looking at each other going, what can we do about this guy? I mean, I think we can get him down to like 4 or 5. Does anyone have any extra damage? And then they say, no, and then you lose. And where could that damage have been made up? Oh, maybe the first couple turns when no one's attacking for almost no discernible reason.
Yes. Get those attacks in when you can, because, one, you play early creatures. If you get them down early, you can attack right away. And other players aren't going to have creatures necessarily ready. Then, of course, as the game goes, the ground clogs up. And then there's a lot of this happens in the mid game where there's the flyers now that can attack. And it's like, don't miss those free chip damage. If you have a 2/2 flyer, get in with your 2/2 flyer. Don't leave it back for no real reason.
Yes. People like to say they don't like to make enemies. I think that does not apply to this. So let's say it's turn 3. I played a 2/2 mana dork. I don't need it for mana, so I'm going to attack with it. I'll attack Joe. Joe has a few options. Number 1, he can just take 2 damage. It's 2 damage. You're down to 38 from 40. Or he could take 2 damage and then announce a vendetta against me. If he wants to spend resources to get back at me when all I did was turn a creature sideways, that's actively good for me. I would love for him to waste cards and mana on this petty thing or try to kill my 2/2 just because it attacked him. So there's whether or not they respond negatively is good for you. You got 2 damage in.
If it ends up costing you the game, it's like, wow, you're playing against somebody who's way too petty, whatever, and that's fine. They're gonna if you're playing against players who are that petty, you're gonna win more games because the next time it happens, someone else is gonna do it, and you'll just get the win because those two went at each other all game because he attacked for 2.
Yeah, I mean, if your opponent's gonna be a doofus, there's better ways to take advantage of it. Like, they're just gonna lose games for being a doofus. Being a doofus is not actually gonna increase your win percentage. Not a tip on this list.
Yeah, don't be a doofus. I'd say not missing your free attacks is doofus proof.
Is doofus proof. What about number 4?
Number 4 is don't ignore threats, and this is so vital and it's so hard to do. It's threat assessment, and it isn't the easiest thing in the world to do. But you need to look at the board and really be able to tell who is the threat. And this comes over time from playing more. And if you don't know, asking other players on the board, usually you'll be able to give a response. Especially if you're sitting at a table of friends and you go, all right, I'm not really sure who the threat is. Sometimes the threat's like, I have 35 power on board. I'm a pretty big threat.
Yeah, if you're not sure, there's cards you haven't played against. Like, is this Smothering Tithe better than this Djinn Gitaxias? The other 2 players who don't control the Djinn, and probably the person who does, go, yeah, if you let him untap with it or we goes through our turn, we're going to lose. And then you can take that and go, oh, okay, so Rystic, or you can put Smothering Tithe here, and you can put Djinn Gitaxias, a little bit above it, to where you can start kind of almost making like a pick order of what tends to be the threat at any given moment. It's just building over time, but if you're not paying attention or you're not taking the game into consideration, some cards are bigger threats in certain decks versus they don't do anything in other decks. So, like let's say Weaponcraft Enthusiast, it's just a 0/1 that makes 2 1/1s, but in the right deck it can be a combo piece, and that's the reason they make infinite mana and kill you. So just keep in mind what's going on, and talk to the board if you don't know. There's not a ton of excuses other than, I forgot or I made a mistake that lead you to answer the wrong threat. And you can find out, hindsight, it was the wrong threat, but that doesn't matter.
Yeah, exactly. Making the right choice in the moment with the information you have is what you have to do. You can't, even if you go to the end of the game, you're like, wow, if I had killed the other threat, I would have won. It's like, it doesn't matter. That doesn't make the choice right for that. Yeah, based on information.
That thought process is kind of a fool's errand. There's no way to tell at the moment or even know if you could have done anything differently. The whole game is different when you say stuff like that. It's just not worth talking about.
Yeah, exactly. So you have to take in all the information you have, hand size, board states, the player's deck, their combo potential, all of that kind of stuff, what the deck is capable of doing, and then go, all right, who is the biggest threat from this moment? And decide from there for both players and permanents on the battlefield. So this guy might have nothing on board, 10 cards in hand with a reliquary tower on the field, and go, oh, yeah, he's got nothing. He doesn't look like a threat, especially if you don't look at his hand.
Yeah, you got to know when players are threats or when decks are a threat. You look at a artifact untappy shenanigans combo deck, that board state's going to look a lot different from my Grave Titan, creature deck that's going to eventually Craterhuff Behemoth. It's way different, and they can be winning from much different positions.
Yes, yeah. Like an attacks deck is going to have a ton of creatures on board to win. You're going to see it coming.
Yep.
The combo deck that's sitting there with 10 cards in hand.
Not so much.
Yeah, a little tougher to see coming. They just kind of just go, oh, and I win.
All right, so number 5. This one's very specific. Pay for Rystic Study and mostly pay for Smothering Tithe. These are like the tax cards that if you just go, forget about it, there you're going to lose the game.
Yes. Whenever you can, you should really pay. Paying is so much better than letting them draw a card. On average, is it a 100% thing either way? No, it's never going to be. But you need to pay way more often than the average player does. So let's go to both extremes here. You can either A, never, ever, ever pay for Rystic Study, or always pay for Rystic Study. Lean towards always pay. Just if you need a hard fast rule to help you as a player, just go to always pay and then go from there. Same thing with Smothering Tithe. Just it's better to always pay than to never pay. We used to have a rule where we just never pay for Smothering Tithe because it was so much mana, but I've started doing exactly the reverse, just paying for it as often as I can, and the card feels a lot more fair when people are paying for it.
Yeah, I had it on turn 2. I played turn 2 Smothering Tithe, and then 2 of my 3 opponents just weren't paying for it. So we went 2 full turn cycles around, and then to where someone eventually drew an answered it, and then I'm like, well, I got 2 treasures out of this? I mean, I slowed them down, but I couldn't really jump ahead to the... slowing them down was different than jumping ahead, and it just did not feel as good as if I had just gotten 9 treasures or however many it was.
Yeah, exactly. So I think, if you need a hard fast rule, do the always pay, but it is it's somewhere a little closer to the middle, but it's still leaning that way.
Trending towards always pays, and especially Rystic Study. It's only 1. Unless your game plan is like broken up completely by having to pay this 1. Like unless you're like, I have to play a 4-drop this turn and then win the game next turn. Okay, let them draw a card. You're going to try to win next turn. But if it's like, I really want to play this mana rock and then this 1-drop, it's like maybe hold back on the 1-drop after you play the mana rock, or don't play the mana rock, play next turn.
Yeah, or just play something, just pay. Plot out your turns around Rystic Study. Take your time and be like, okay, if I cast these 2 spells, I'll have the extra 2 mana. Or I can cast 1 and not pay, and then I can pay for the other one. Plan out your turn when Rystic Study's on the field.
I usually just ask if someone has a kill spell for it. That kind of impacts some decisions too. If this is going to be out for 5 turns, well, I'm going to wait to pay. But if it's dead next turn, maybe I will just make that play that draws them a card.
Yeah.
And it's a 1-for-1.
Yeah, it's not as insane as it would be otherwise. Again, just pay for it a lot more often than you are most likely. I've played in many groups now. Too many people do not pay for these cards.
Yeah, if you don't pay for this and you're wondering like what you could do better, I think you'll find that you have lost a lot of games from not paying this, even though it looked like you're forwarding your board state.
You can never tell. I mean, it's impossible to tell because your opponent's drawing cards.
You don't know what they are.
You don't see it. Yeah, exactly. So it's like, even though they have 10 cards in hand, you don't know what they drew. In your head, they could be all lands.
Right. So what about number 6?
Number 6 is save your removal. This goes for counter spells too. So someone's sitting to your left. You pass a turn with your mana drain up. Okay, whatever, your counter spell, whatever specific counter spell you have. Pass to them. They cast a spell, and you immediately counter it. It's like, whoa, calm down.
Slow down.
Yeah. This works with threat assessment a lot, where it's like, just, whoa, is that actually a threat? Do I actually need to get rid of that? Don't just counter anything you can counter because you have a counter spell. No, wait, pick your spot. Know what's a threat to you, and then use your counterspell / removal spell.
Yes, and the reason this is in its own tip is because there's a huge class of cards that just aren't even worth removing at all. And we would definitely put, for an example, Grave Titan falls under this category for sure. I never, ever have ever spent a removal spell on Grave Titan. Like, let's say, Source of Plowshares, like some instant speed, single target removal spell. The thing about Grave Titan is, it's never going to be the thing that kills you. It's never going to end the game, and it doesn't end the game quickly, even if it's going to be attacking every turn. It kind of just sits there and is like this generic card that does okay. And I think you just don't need to kill it because there's plenty of cards coming down on the board that you can't answer. Eventually something's going to happen, but the game's just going to end, or the game will get rid of these excess creatures via board wipe in some other way, and you don't need to spend removal on them.
Yes, I would say these kind of cards like you're talking about, like let's just like I can come up with the example where you do need to answer the Graves Titan. It's not always that you don't need to answer it, but I feel like it's so easily chump blockable and it's so easy to block the 2/2s.
Or just take 6.
Yeah, well, exactly. In those cases, but flip the script. Now you're a control deck. If you're on that extreme, now you have something that is a 6/6 making tons of bodies in the field is actually something you need to answer if you can. If you don't have a board wipe in your hand, you actually do have to remove the 6/6.
Right.
And that can be the opposite. It's like most decks don't need to answer a thing like Grave Titan, but if you're the control deck, you do. So you need to know where to use your removal.
I just think it comes down to, can you win at any reasonable sort of pace? If you can, you don't need to answer cards like this. You're going to be saving removal spells and just drawing cards. Over the course, that's what it's going to end up being, is you just have extra cards in your hand because you're not answering this spell that, it looks cool and it puts power and toughness into play, but doesn't actually win the game or cause you to lose.
Yeah, you need to be, and also like a card like we were saying with Grave Titan, a card that's a threat to one deck, to most decks, might not be a threat to your deck at all.
Right, and you could end up saving removal, not answering it, and then someone else does because they're a control deck, and you just go, oh, cool, I get this Chaos Warp just in my hand.
Yeah, I get this hold on to this card because they had to answer it before me. Again, also having that instant speed removal here, it helps so much with saving your removal. You can save removal even if there's something that's a huge threat to you because you wait till it either attacks you or before they untap. Like, wait till the last second to use your removal spell.
Yeah, all these things kind of intertwine, and they just end up really boosting your win percentage. I think somebody who wouldn't follow any of these 10 tips and then follow their 10 tips, you would see a huge increase in their winning.
Yes. Yeah. Oh, my God. All 10 of these? If someone didn't use any of these, woo.
Maybe they can't win. So what about number 7?
Number 7, take advantage of politics. Some people don't like politics. It's not their favorite part of the game. But if you don't do this at all, if you don't make any deals in any games, you will lose percentage points. And if it's not fun for you, I actually don't do it. If you don't enjoy the aspect of politics. But we're just talking about, this is a 4-player game. And it's not just making the best plays that you can. You can do other things. You can make political deals. This is an aspect that is completely only true to Commander. You can't do this in any other version of Magic. The 1v1s, the 2-headed giants even. Yeah. You can't do that. But you can in these games.
Yeah, in a 1v1 format, anything your opponent says has no value. There's just no value in it. You can successfully play through 1v1 games if your opponent's just was speaking Japanese. It doesn't matter. But in Commander, 4-player game, your opponents can offer better plays that don't affect them. They can give you the line to hurt somebody else. You can team up and actively work against someone. There's way different aspects going on. And I think you don't have to take advantage of like you give me 2 turns free and then I'll let you draw 3 cards. Like, you don't have to go crazy, but even just, hey, can we answer this threat together? Can we work it so that he's not in first place and we can get back in this game? Simple stuff like that.
Yes, I agree with that completely. I think a simple, like a very extreme way to look at this, how politics and interacting with the other players helps you. If you sit down at a table and you're the only English speaker and the other 3 all speak Japanese for the same example, you're at a huge disadvantage because you can't make a deal. You can't interact in a different way. All you can really communicate is how you're attacking and all of that stuff. And like how you're blocking. It's like, and like that's easy to communicate Magic. That's also a cool thing about Magic. People who don't speak the same language can play the same game, and that's cool.
Oh yeah, they can have counterspell wars. Like, no, wait, here, this does this, but you can't say like, hey, dude, what the heck is this guy up to? We need to get something. We can get some answers. Do you have a Source of Plowshares in your hand? Do you have anything to deal with that? No. Okay. What about this? You have none of that.
Yes, politics. They'll definitely be able to help you increase your win percentage, especially if you learn how to use them to your advantage.
And not even necessarily in a huge way. Number 8. This one is the most simple sounding one. Eliminate players, or don't be afraid to eliminate players. You signed up for a game. You're all playing to win, hopefully. The contract, the social contract, people might make it seem like it's taboo to eliminate someone. I am totally fine with being eliminated if I'm the threat. Let's say your opponents are all at 30 and you have 3 10-10s. People would tend to, 10, 10, 10. We're saying, no. 30. Get out of, you're done. Get out of the game. Sorry. You were in the best spot. I had to eliminate you. I think we need to normalize eliminating people.
You just need to eliminate players. That's how you win. If you're not planning on comboing and you're not playing a combo deck, the only way to win is to eliminate each player by combat individually. Sure, sometimes you'll do a Kratos and kill all of them at once, but usually you got to eliminate one at a time.
Yeah, playing to win, it's okay to just eliminate somebody. especially if you're going to look at it from your point of view, trying to increase your win percentage, saying, man, what am I doing to give up these wins? I know Commander has a lot of factors. There's a lot of things that can contribute to me losing. And I don't quite have that 25% win percentage that I'm striving for. Well, stuff like this, where you can take somebody out and you kind of don't think about it necessarily, but that's a really huge spot. If you have a bunch of creatures in play and you attack everybody for 10, they're all still in the game. If you eliminate the next best player who's most likely to board wipe you, your chances of winning go way up. There's less board wipes now in everybody's hand, maybe none.
So if you're sitting at a table and everyone has an equal chance of winning, you have a 25% chance of winning. If you knock out any individual player, your win percentage automatically goes up to 33 if everyone has an equal chance of winning. So eliminating a player has such a huge bump to your win percentage.
Yeah, especially since you're the one who's eliminating them. Your chances are probably way higher than 33%. You just killed somebody.
Yeah, if you have the ability to knock someone out of a game, you're probably in a good position on the board. Not always true, and sometimes it actually can be beneficial to leave a player alive. There are definitely situations where it's not right to kill a player. But in general, I think overall, if we're going full either never eliminate a player or always eliminate a player is probably the way to go.
Trend towards that. It's okay. You can play more games. Just learn to take your lumps if being eliminated first and learn to give out the lumps. It all evens out in Commander. It's okay. There's infinite more games to play. We saw that a lot, the exception to the rule, a lot in Commander Legends where everyone could always kill somebody, but it was bad because you put your shields down. We're talking about if you can just take somebody down with minimal to no hit crackback or potential chance of losing, do it.
Yeah, exactly. Obviously, you shouldn't swing your whole team at everybody and leave yourself wide open to a huge crackback
to eliminate a player.
That's way different. We're talking about you can eliminate a player with minimal downside to yourself. You should most likely do that.
Instead of spreading the love.
Yes, instead of spreading the love around. If you have 15, if everyone's at 15 and you have 15 in flyers, maybe just try and eliminate somebody.
Yeah. How about number 9? We're almost done.
Number 9 is overvaluing life, or even like more specific, doing useless chumps. You attack someone with a 4/4 and they chump with their 1/1 for no reason seemingly. It's like, you're at 40. Just go to 36. Who cares?
Yeah, you start at so much life. And the other thing is that's the onboard example, but the deck building example is you're putting life gain in your deck when you just don't need to. Most decks don't care or have no interest in gaining life. The classic example I always think of is, let's say you're an elf ball deck. All right, your goal is put elves in play, make mana from elves, cast a game-winning spell, or activate game-winning abilities to make infinite mana, or something along those lines. Huge splashy effect to win. What is Well-Wisher doing for you? Well, it taps to gain a bunch of life. Like, you can gain a lot of life. You can gain 20, 30 life a turn. What does that do for your game plan? Absolutely nothing.
Yes. I think the best way to explain this is what you end up doing when you put all this life gain in that you don't have any synergy for your deck with it is, obviously, if you have tons of ways to pay life or tons of ways to use life as a resource, then it makes sense to gain life. But if you're just gaining life and there's cards that are just for gaining life, you're not moving towards winning the game. You're actively trying to not lose. And not losing that's not how you win.
You'll never win if you try to. If your goal, it's so much different. It sounds the same. If you try to win, okay, you're generally going to win. If you try to not lose, I think you're almost never going to win.
Yes, not losing, just preventing yourself from being knocked out and doing all that stuff. I think this also can be explained by like fogs, those kind of effects, like a darkness, a fog, all those type of effects. They're not never playable, but in most decks you don't want them because they don't really do what you want. They say, I don't lose. They don't say I win. They say I don't lose.
In this specific situation, because...
Exactly.
And it's not even like gaining life is... If you go to infinite life, you are not safe at all. You could still be decked. They can still say they win directly. They can still say you lose directly. You could still get poison counters. You could still take infinite damage. And commander damage exists. So there's 6 ways right there where having infinite life doesn't matter 1 ounce. And if you just had a creature that actually fit your game plan instead of this Well-Wisher, you'd be so much better off. There's no point being proactively defensive.
Yes, exactly. You don't want to play, like, being defensive with certain plays and everything makes sense, especially if you know what your deck wants to do, but you just don't need to gain life in an elf ball deck do you have, unless your off-ball deck is some deck I don't know and it wants to gain life because it has payouts for it. Maybe.
Right. That's different. Synergy is different, but life gain for the sake of life gain is useless, and I think we can move back to this chump thing, where if you're getting attacked with a 6/6, don't give up a creature that's important to your game plan just to gain 6 life, especially when you're at like 40 or 35. Like go to 29.
Yeah, like there is situations where you're going to chump. If I have a board wipe in my hand, I'm chumping every time. You'll see me make the worst blocks in the world sometimes when I have a board wipe. Some of those look funny. I had to go to the bathroom the other day. I'm like, whatever attacks me, I'll block it with my creature. And I went to the bathroom. I'm like, they could have easily figured out I had a board wipe because why was I blocking with my 7/7 against an 8/8?
Yeah, stuff like that makes sense. But when you're giving up resources, it's almost like discarding cards to gain life. Would you ever do that? Well, there are situations where I would do that. Yeah, if I'm about to win, or these creatures don't matter, or they're going to the graveyard and I have a way to get them back, yeah, I'm going to just discard a card to gain 4 life all day. But if I'm just chilling in the mid to late game, send a 6/6 with menace at me, I'm not going to chump it. I'm really not going to throw 2 creatures under the bus for that.
Yes, you just should take your lumps and go down on life when it doesn't matter. Obviously, this is, again, not a steadfast rule, but again, we can just do the 2 extremes. Should you never chump block or should you always chump block? Lean toward never.
Trend towards not. Definitely closer to not than always.
Yes, closer to not than always chump block. I would agree with that. Though there's situations you need to chump block in.
Every rule has an exception. And I thought you were going to storm off with your agains because you're like, and again, do this, and again, and again, do this. All right, there's only one more, and it kind of connects to
everything.
At least all of the other 9 we've done.
Yes, it literally connects to all the other ones. It might be the most important. Understand your game plan, understand your deck, understand what you want to be doing. Let's just start with mulligans. When you're mulliganing, if you understand that your deck needs turn 2 ramp, you even have 15 turn 2 ramp spells in your deck, you need it. Never keep your hand without it. I mean,
what's the point?
You should actively be aggressively mulliganing because probably 90% of your opening hands, if you have 15, are going to have 1.
Yes, you know the math. You know you're highly expected to have it. And if your second hand is functional and still doesn't have 1, you go, okay, not the end of the world. I just mulligan for free. Instant speed interaction over sorcery speed. You know your deck's game plan. You can pick the best spells around it. Like not missing free attacks, ignoring threats. That's kind of tough. But the amount of threats you can ignore changes based on what your deck is.
Yes, I actually think. Understanding your game plan and knowing your game plan, especially when deck building, this is where instant speed, a sorcery speed thing, can take over an instant speed thing.
Mm-hmm, yep.
Because we'll take Terminate for an example. It's an instant speed 2-mana removal spell. If your deck is a creature-based deck, a graveyard-based deck, suddenly Shriekmaw and Chupacabra just take this huge leap, even though on paper they're much worse cards. And yes, they are worse cards
in a vacuum.
But as soon as you start looking at synergies and what my deck wants to do and understanding your game plan, those cards just go down. And that's a deck building thing where you can actually go, oh, yeah, I am supposed to prioritize instant speed. But synergy is super important too.
Yeah, I'll take these best instants, but then I'll switch because my deck is all artifacts, and I'll play Duretti, which has much higher upside than Terminate, or because he can do other things, and also just triple murder something with upside.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. You just need to know what your deck wants to do. If you build your elf ball deck, understand that you need to throw your elves out there and do and get as many elves on board as possible. So chump blocking is not what you want to do. You don't want to be chump blocking with your elf deck because every elf is important. If you have a Priest Titania out, your 1-mana elf that doesn't even have any other text, okay? It's just an elf token, okay? It's a mana.
It represents a mana, and that's not obvious, but you have to know your deck.
You probably have a Skull Clamp in your deck as well.
Yeah.
It could represent 2 more cards. That elf, if you build your decks correctly and you take the time to know and understand your game plan, when you have you don't make 1/1 elves for no reason.
Right.
You make it to do something, and your deck probably has 30 different ways to take advantage of it. Don't just throw it away for no reason.
Yeah, don't just chump block it. No deck's plan is to not pay for Rystic instead of your Smothering Tithe. So that's how that ties in. Nobody ever wants to do that. That's not your game plan, is to lose. Saving removal. You can save removal for various things. Some things fall into that category of like Grave Titan, do nothing, don't need to kill it. I'll just take a couple damage from it instead. Some things fall under, rest in peace. I have to kill that or I can't win.
Yes. Also, you're playing a white weenie deck. Guess what? You have to kill Ellis Join. You can't play the game. You don't get to play the game of will someone else remove it. Nope. I have to kill it. It has to die because if it doesn't die, my deck literally doesn't function.
Yes, there's cards like that all across the spectrum. And in terms of eliminating players, I guess it's understand what your deck is. Do you want to dodge board wipes? Take someone out. Are you scared of a combo? Do you not have good answers against this? Kill the player. Player removal is card advantage. It's card removal.
Yes, it's player removal. It is removal.
It's creature removal, I think is what the saying is.
Yeah, it removes everything. It just player removal is removal.
Yeah, so we just basically explain this by connecting it to the other 9.
Yes, exactly. And this is a hard thing to do. When you build a deck and you throw a deck together, don't just throw cards together. Come to a game plan, understand the game plan, and try and execute the game plan. Don't just throw a card in the deck because it's a good card. I Terminate is a good Magic card. It's an effective Magic card, and it does what it needs to do. But when you build a deck, on average, it's not going to make the deck because it doesn't have synergies. Mm-hmm. I think the only example I really come up with in my head for when you put that Terminate is a Kest deck. It's like, okay, that kind of makes sense and it kind of fits in there. And then as soon as you start moving away from the Kest deck where the instant matters, it's like there are so many better types of removal spells. And when you understand your deck, you can build your deck better and you can win more games.
This is why we're always saying Cultivate just doesn't make it. Explosive Vegetation doesn't make it. Terminate doesn't make it. None of these cards are bad. They're just below the other 15 that do make it.
Yes.
And do have synergy or don't have synergy and are just so much more versatile or better or cheaper that they make it. I swear one of these days we might just do a whole video on Terminate because I think we need to. It might be partially our fault for not even explaining in depth enough what we're actually meaning because people were just fundamentally misunderstanding what we were saying. Yeah. I could see a whole video about it, just explaining it.
A lot of people went on about budget. It's like, yeah, I know. If you're on a budget, Terminate is totally not just passable. Terminate's great on a budget.
It's playable. I think there's better cards in it still, but it's probably gonna make my budget deck. Yeah,
it's tough. It's tough if you're in red black, just red black. Mm-hmm. It's gonna be tough not to play Terminate on a $25 budget. Okay, that's pretty good.
Yeah, $25 budget. That actually might be too expensive for you.
Oh yeah,
you want your average card to be 25 cents.
Okay, I meant $50.
Yeah, $50 budget, $100 budget. Anyway,
there you go.
We're rambling now. Understand your game plan. It is one of the fundamental things you have to do before you even build your deck. So get that done, and I think these 10 tips really going to seriously increase your win percentage. And I want to know, past, present, future, have you done any of these? Are you going to implement them? Have you implemented them, and are they working for you? I really want to know.
Yes, I would love to know the win percentage difference between someone who uses all of our tips and someone who uses none of them. It's got to be actually tangible.
Yeah, I don't think that person exists, but they're going to win way more games if they do.
Yes, they do. But that's our video. Special shout outs to all of our patrons. We love you all as much as we can without making you uncomfortable, obviously, because we never want to make you comfortable. You're the lifeblood of the channel. You keep this channel going. Thank you very much.
Check out the link in the description. It has a TCG player link. Where does that go, you ask? The homepage. What do I do now? Navigate where you want, buy the cards where you want, put them in the cart, check out. Now when you check out, you've spent no extra money, but TCG Player sees that we sent you there, and they give us money.
Yes.
For having you support us. You don't spend anything, we get something.
Yes. Very much appreciated. Thank you very much.
Yes. And as a tidbit, it is my birthday yesterday. It was my birthday yesterday. It is my birthday today when we record. But April 1st is my birthday, and I loved the reactions we got from our April Fool's Day video, which has been, the title has been changed because we're not trying to clickbait people. We just wanted to make a joke.
Yes, exactly. It was a one-day thing. The title's already changed. It says that it's an April Fool's video now. You know it's an April Fool's video, but it was enjoyable. It was a funny thing to make. We never broke character for the whole thing. We just went through the whole thing pretending like this was our real preview card. We never got a preview card. Do you think we got a preview card? Wizards can't acknowledge our existence.
Yeah, two things. One, I highly recommend if you haven't seen it, you go check out our previous year's April Fool's Day where we had the nitpicking queens on. We were not in that video at all. It just wasn't us. So I would definitely recommend if you like tomfoolery, go check that out. And how have we not gotten a preview card yet? How many subs do you need for a preview card?
I mean, some people don't.
It's like a running gag.
Some people don't even do content per se.
Yeah.
And they get preview cards.
I don't get it. I just want a formal DM or letter or email from any Wizards employee. This is what I will accept. The email contains the following sentence, quote, "We acknowledge your existence," end quote. That's all I need. And I'll be like, oh, we did it. I don't even need a preview card.
They couldn't even tell us the reason. If they don't want to give us a preview card, how about a reason why we don't get a preview card? It's the classic. It is. Let's just say we're on some list.
Some blacklist.
It's possible. I'm not saying it's likely, but it is possible. which is probably definitely has content creators they don't work with. I mean,
Yeah, sure.
I could name some, but I'm not going to. But they have content creators they don't want to work with, and they don't want to have preview cards and stuff.
Sure.
And such. We could possibly be on the list. It's not impossible. But it's the classic. They'll never say it.
Yeah.
Because it's just bad for them to say it because
like radio silence.
Yeah, it's just better for them to say nothing.
Yes.
That's frustrating. Being on the side of we don't even know if we're on that list or not, or if they just literally have never noticed this, which seems impossible.
We're so big. We're what are we checking? We're like the 20th biggest Commander channel.
Yeah, we're growing and growing
and growing very quickly. This was like our fastest month of growth ever. So happy. It's the freaking shorts, man. We're so happy to keep doing them and just keep everything rolling and just be the biggest YouTube channel ever and give everybody hugs.
Yeah, bigger than the dream.
Bigger than the dream.
You're going down, dream.
Was it the music composer or the 12-year-old who makes Minecraft videos? Dream, I think, is a 12-year-old. The Dream writes music.
The Dream, yeah.
You haven't heard of The Dream?
The Dream. We're going to take down first The Dream, the musical
T-Series
producer, then T-Series, then PewDiePie, then Dream, the guy who cheated in Minecraft.
T-Series is number 1, though.
But I don't care.
In that order.
Yeah, but you know what? Never mind. We're just taking down Dream. He's going down. He cheated in Minecraft, and I'm sick of his poop.
We don't even follow that. We're done.
Peace out, Trap Scout.